Hello, Andor Rebellion Project. This is episode 1, season 1, the very beginning of this beautiful journey where a bunch of us all around the world are watching Andor together. We're talking about it in our Discord. We are appreciating it not just as Star Wars fans, but as people living in a society that is descending into authoritarianism. As one of our members put it, the show does something unique by showing how authoritarianism grinds down ordinary people through bureaucracy and surveillance, not just big dramatic moments. You might recognize me. I'm doing my best Bix. I made this vest this morning out of a bag. I wanted to just get in the spirit, you know? We have a really great co-host to break down this first episode, so let's just dive right in. Hello, Anthony Carboni.
Hello, Jessica Burbank. How are you?
Is the best. I'm more excited for this than I've been for anything in a long time.
I love it. You're Bix bounding. I can tell you're stoked.
I am. Yeah, I made this, I'm getting into sewing. I had to do Bix, first episode.
We love Bix. We love Bix so much.
And this episode, okay, your favorite character is introduced.
One of my favorites is introduced. Syril Karn.
Okay. Great character.
Syril Karn is a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah. You hate the guy, but in real life he's probably not horrible.
Oh, Kyle's lovely.
Have you met Kyle?
Yeah, I got to interview. So he and Denise play Syril and Dedra. And they are the two just loveliest, kindest, nicest folks. And one of my first questions to Kyle was just like, is it tough to just be such a dork jerk all the time? And he was like, it's incredibly hard. He's like, usually when you interview an actor, they're like, oh, I try to get in the mind of the character and he's like, Syril sucks.
I go to work and I become someone I hate.
Yeah, absolutely. But he and Dedra's the same way, right? You loathe them so much. They're just icky. They're gross and they're icky and they're mean and they're petty. And even in this first episode, his introduction is just the introduction of just the tiniest, pettiest man in the galaxy. And I love him so much.
Yes, let's get into his first investigation and how the show opens.
Yeah.
I think this opening scene, after rewatching it, so relevant to our politics right now.
Oh, 100%.
And I think a lot of the folks in the Andor Rebellion project are thinking about that. But these are 2 sentry guards that are on duty, not supposed to be in a brothel.
Right.
They're in the leisure zone.
Right.
And immediately are offended that Cassian Andor is served before them.
Yeah.
The fragile masculinity of these guys, I think, is so interesting. Just because Andor gets served first, they decide they don't like this guy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you think you're better than me?
Right. And to add the double of, Cassian, obviously, Diego is Mexican and Cassian is indigenous coded in this series, and so they're obviously double angry about that. You can tell. And one of my favorite things about these 2 guys in this whole opening is they're not military, they're not law enforcement. They're in the Premor system, right? Which is run by the Preox Morlana Corporation. This is a company town. They're Pinkertons. Syril's a Pinkerton. These are the grossest, union busting security, corpo dudes in the world. And they're it's so disgusting. And it really does feel incredibly relevant. I hate how Andor feels more and more relevant as we go on.
It's the worst, but I think seeing it in art helps me process it in a different way. Being exhausted by the news is impossible, but when I watch Andor, I'm like, no, ordinary people can fight this.
Yes.
Cassian, we know he's kind of a rough and tumble guy. He makes his money by taking on debt, collecting money from people, selling parts, but you don't get the sense that he's regularly in fights like the one he ends up in the alley. These guys pull a gun on him. They're
Yeah.
harassing him. And he's like, "All right, I've got 300 credits in my pocket." And they say, "Oh, well, that's actually exactly how much the fine is for
Hmm.
being out past curfew." And so you know these guards are in this brothel, the expensive one that they're not supposed to be able to afford, probably because they do this on the regular.
Yes. It's a completely corrupt system from top down. And these
Hmm.
are these are guys that have like a little bit of power, but are also, because they're part of this corrupt system, underpaid, not respected, right? The job is not what they thought it was going to be. And so they too are kind of like under the heel of this thing. And so you can tell they're just like, yeah, we'll collect 300 credits here. We'll collect 300 credits there. We'll take a little time off on the company clock. Like it's all corrupt from top to bottom. Nobody is treated well. And you can see how it's affecting everything.
And this is like definitely a more edgy opening scene than we see in Star Wars.
We acknowledge that people have sex.
Yeah.
That might be, I think that is the first time in Star Wars we have acknowledged that sex happens. Children are
Hmm.
not just born of midichlorians.
How are babies made Star Wars edition?
That's right. How are babies made? Well, when a Jedi has to bring balance to the order.
A real Jesus story.
Exactly. So, yeah, this is I think a story that a lot of people have wanted to see for a long time, and I think that's why uh it was so important for Tony to make the series, for Tony Gilroy to make the series, and why it resonated with people so much is like, yeah, the space wizards and the smugglers and the pirates and all that stuff, but like, what is the Empire doing to the regular person, right? Like, what is the Empire doing that is terrible? How are people reacting to this? How does it affect their lives? You know, we hear that there's a rebellion and we hear that there's an oppressive force, but we mostly see it on a macro scale in all the rest of Star Wars. We don't get a lot of personal stories of people who are not born to bring balance to the galaxy, who are not the space princess that is destined to free everybody, you know? And I think it's something that I had been wanting to see more of for a long time on the screen from Star Wars. So it's one of the reasons that makes this, it's one of the reasons this show is so wonderful.
And it shows that the way someone takes to, a more passionate hatred for empire
Mhm.
is their family's directly affected. And we see that in Cassian so much. It's I need to find my sister.
Right.
Um,
Don't get
and so
too don't get too attached to that plot thread is what I'll say.
yeah.
Don't don't worry too
No
much about
spoilers,
that.
but yeah. Um, but it shows that it's personal, and then he's just fighting off these two guys that have pulled a gun on him. It's a self-defense situation,
Hmm.
and he makes a mistake. But I love the scene where he's staring at the sentry guard and he's holding the gun, which he's taken through the struggle. And it's like this calculation is happening in his mind where he knows he's accidentally killed the first guard.
Yeah,
And
right.
he's like, I don't think I can get away with this in a company town,
Mhm.
with a witness. And I love that scene because it shows that you kind of know in an authoritarian regime that there isn't justice.
Yeah.
And even though it's murder, you feel like, yeah, get out of there, Cassian. Yeah, you have to shoot him and get out.
Yes, and you can tell that even the sentry knows. Like when the sentry starts bargaining, even you can see it on his face where he's like, this guy knows that everything I'm saying is bullshit.
Hmm.
There's no way this guy doesn't shoot me, because how would he believe me? How would he
Hmm.
believe me? This is clearly a lie. There is no way I don't save my ass and get him thrown in jail, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. And then it shows how quickly you can become an enemy of an authoritarian state. The way that Cassian goes from a guy just trying to make it on Ferrix, which let's talk about Ferrix for a second.
Sure.
I'm I'm a fan. This is a planet of a bunch of regular working people that are always covered in grease that are salvaging the parts of old ships.
Yes, this
It's
is
cool.
it's also part of Premor, right? It's under the same company, it's under the same corporation, and this is a mining town. This is an automotive town in the 60s. This is a place that should be a union town, right? And you're born if you're born on Ferrix, you know what you're going to be doing with your life.
Hmm.
Which is really, but these are also people that are very proud of what they do. Like, we don't see it in this first episode as much, but as we move through this season, we see how proud people are of their lineage and their heritage and the work they do and who they are. Ferrix has like a very strong sense of pride and of culture, and you know they're doing the best they can under their circumstances that they have to live in, and they make lives out of it. And yeah, I love Ferrix too. I love Ferrix a lot.
And Brasso does have the vibe of like a very just unions shop steward.
Yes. Yeah, he feels like a like the foreman. He feels like the he's his like bizarro his bizarro reflection will be Andy Serkis later on, but
Hmm. Hmm.
he feels sort of like that guy who's all right, you showed up 10 minutes late, like put your boots on, get to work, like nobody saw, I'll cover for you. Making sure everybody does their job, but like an honest dude, right? And a good friend.
Yeah, he's this huge dude, but with the kindest eyes. And I love how quickly, just by looking at Cassian, the dialogue isn't explaining what's happening, but he can immediately tell by the look in his eyes, oh, this is something serious that he needs me to cover for. It's like,
Right.
what did you do? And then he's so quick to go along with the story. You insulted my choice of beverage. As a host and a provider, I was offended by this. You
Yes.
failed to gauge the depth of my irritation. You rose to make your point. You fell in your chair. That's when you got hit, and you're here to apologize to me now. Just immediate, no questions asked. Here's our alibi.
Yes, here's our alibi, but also the subtext of this alibi is, dude, you're getting into shit again. I'm getting out
Mm-hmm.
of it again. And I love that his thing is, you came by to apologize. You came because, like, I think if you're Cassian's friend, you've never gotten an apology in your life.
Mm-hmm.
I think,
Yeah.
we talk about how Cassian is doing what he has to do to scrape by, uh, and is kind of living on the fringe of it, and there's a certain respectability to that. But I think and we see it in this first episode, if you're friends with that guy, it's very hard. Like, being friends with that guy is not an easy thing to be, especially if you're a guy like Brasso who's trying to be honest and trying to look out for everybody. I think they have a real, even like when you talk about how big Brasso is, they've got that Warner Brothers Bulldog Chihuahua thing going on where you can tell that Cassian's the one that runs his mouth and Brasso never throws a punch unless he has to.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the vibe of like uncut gems, like robbing Peter to pay Paul, and you're like, God, get it together, buddy. Instead, it has this vibe of you want to root for Cassian, even though he's clearly got debt with everyone. Everyone's reached their limit with giving him patience.
Yeah,
And even,
as he's driving off, Brasso's just like, and I'm not giving you any money, and it's like, cool.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
very standard.
yeah,
But
and Pegla is like, what are you doing? The boss is here. You shouldn't be here.
yeah.
And he's like, "Can I use the ship tonight?" And of course, if you really think about Pegla's position, of course you're gonna say no. But you're just like, "Come on, Pegla, he needs it. He's gotta get out. Like, please." But totally understandable that everything he's doing is just pushing everyone in his life to the edge.
Well, and he's not, it's not just because he's charming, right? Or that everybody grew up with him or they feel like family. I think everybody in a system like they live in wishes they were doing a little more like Cassian is doing. You know, I think everybody is like, oh, I really want Cassian to stick it to Pre-More. I really want Cassian to stick it to the Empire, and I'm not going to be the one to do it. But like, it'd be great to see Cassian do it. You know, and I think that's why they give him so much slack.
That's why the scene, and it's classic Star Wars humor too, when he runs into Vetch and Nurchi.
Hmm.
And, it's Nurchi saying, I want my deposit back. Come on. Vetch is just standing there and he's like, what? Really? You're threatening me? And then he's like, all he said I had to do was just stand here.
Yeah.
And it's so classic because it looks like he's the muscle and they're there to get the money back that Cassian owes him. But just the fact that he's like, yeah, I don't know. He said all I had to do is stand here. It's
Yeah.
just like, oh, the relief and tension in that joke is so good.
It's so good, and it's indicative of it's small town life too, right? Like it's
Yeah.
like Vetch and Nurchi are there, and it's like, man, we know each other. Like, are you really gonna rough me up today? Like, is that really what's gonna happen? And they're like, no, we're not really gonna rough you up, but we gotta look like we're roughing you up because we gotta get this. Like, it's all very you really see the motions that everybody feels like they have to go through when you're under a system that like expects very specific things of you. Um, which is why to me, I mean, I guess this is another favorite character of mine too, but I think I think B2 is maybe like top three droids in this history of Star Wars.
So good. Such a good voice.
The fact that yeah, that's Dave Chapman, and Dave also plays he puppeteers for BB-8. He's puppeteered for a lot of other stuff. He's done voices for other Star Wars stuff before, and oh, listen, whatever you say about the Rise of Skywalker, the fact that we gave droids the ability, like little droids, the astromechs, the ability to speak with a human voice in Rise of Skywalker, it really paves the way for B2 to just be like you really feel for B2 maybe more than any other character throughout this entire series. And I love the line that B2 has where Cassian's like, "Okay, I need you to make a lie for me." And B2 like alludes to the fact that it takes a lot of energy for droids to lie. And
Yeah,
he's
I
like,
can lie. I have adequate power resources.
yeah, he's like, well, that's two lies. I'm gonna have to go home and charge. And it's like,
You know what I love about that too is on X when Grok says something that's too honest and Elon's like, "Sorry, we have to do updates." Like the concept that this service unit can't lie is hilarious because we see AI struggling with this now, like struggling with the direction to be dishonest because their programmer is telling them to.
right. And it's like, well, we've trained it on all of human communication. And it turns out that most of the time, even on the internet, in human communication, people just kind of tell the truth. And so if you ask an AI that's built on all of human communication to tell you something, it's just going to tell you
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's the data. And so it's like when you think about what they have to do, like if you've ever looked at people try to tell an AI how to behave, it's just the prompt gets longer and longer, right? And so that's why I think like the fact that B2 needs a lot of energy to lie is so funny because I imagine somebody like Elon typing it, it's like, okay, but if somebody asks about this, you have to say this. And then if somebody asks about the like if somebody asks about the financial situation of X since I took it over, you have to say this. And then you can just see like the CPU cycles and the tap water and the electricity just draining.
And I love how the first thing it's like Marva said you were ruining your health and reputation with friends of low character. Like
Yes.
if a person was asked like, "Oh, like what did Marva say? Were people wondering where I was?" A person would be like, "Yeah, Marva's worried. She's disappointed." But instead it's like the exact summary that an AI would give,
Yeah. And the fact that
ruining your health and
he
reputation. It's
keeps
like the
going.
Marxists, the looters.
Right. He just keeps going too, where he's like, and she says one day you're gonna get into a situation that you can't talk your way out of, and he's like, shut up. Shut up.
It's like a full rundown of the highlights of what was said. Yeah,
Exactly. M dashes and
so
bullet
good.
points.
Um, yeah, and I just think there's a cuteness in the way that B moves around, and the nickname B is cute.
And the little bits of affection, even though Cassian is kind of getting frustrated with B2, like the little bit where he pulls the chunk of wire that got caught in B2 out so B2 can move his head around. And the moment that B2 says, "Oh, I'm not coming with you," like Cassian
Mhm.
gets immediately like softens. He's like, "Oh no, I can't, bud." Like droids are so everybody, like people have asked me before about like droids and AI and what it means in Star Wars and what I think it means. And droids are so pet coded, particularly like R2 or B2 style droids are so pet coded. And it's like that thing where you're getting ready to go out and the dog is just looking at you like, yes, we're getting ready to go out. And you're like, no, but it's like, well, why aren't we getting ready to go out? Why can't I just be with you all the time?
Yeah, I love B's like occasional stutter too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Cassian, why am I not coming with you? It's like, oh, it's okay, B. You can come.
The way that B2 is used throughout this series as like an emotional thermometer for characters who increasingly have to hide what they're feeling is so wonderful because B2 never has to do that. And like you're allowed all these characters that are trying to stay tough throughout this series. It's so nice because you're allowed to feel for them in these moments where they show B2 feeling for them. Real audience surrogate and good puppy B2.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of humor also in just saying the obvious thing that no one's saying. And that's
Yes.
really what a lot of the droids do. Yeah.
Yeah, and particularly in like stressful situations, political situations, situations where safety is an issue, um, or people are trying to be brave or protect themselves or hide things. It's just so lovely for the droid to just be like, "No, we all see it."
Yeah. It's like, oh, thank you. Yes. Okay. I'm not missing something. We're not all ignoring this. Okay. This is a good time and a good question for you. Barnaby Jones asked, "Is this the first Star Wars property that has shown people with actual jobs outside of criminal, soldier, diplomat, junk dealer, scavenger, or restaurant bar owner?"
Wow. Yeah, you don't get a lot of that, do you? You don't get a lot of that. I would say in comics, in animated stuff, in the novelizations, you definitely get a lot more of that. But the same way you sort of hear uh, the fact that people are actually going to have sex, this might be the first time in Star Wars you actually see somebody clock in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like a normal structured 9 to 5 sort of thing, yeah, this might be it. Um,
Yeah.
and one of my favorite things is about this show is how later on we see a lot more of sort of the banality of evil, but we see it particularly when we get to see things like Syril and his mom, where we do see kind of career admins and things like that in the Empire, and you know, shop owners, even though he's not really a shop owner, but shop owners and people who run like import export businesses and real honest to goodness jobbers in Star Wars. is not something you see a lot of.
Right.
A funny thing though is there was an MMO years ago called Star Wars Galaxies, and one of the things in Star Wars Galaxies was the promise that you could live in Star Wars, but the issue with that is it means like you couldn't just pick to be a Jedi. Like only one in every 10,000 players or something like that was born with the Force. And so people had to do things like get day jobs and be craftsmen and artisans in Star Wars, and everyone hated it. It was an incredibly hated Star Wars video game because of it. But I do think I'm the sort of person that likes seeing more day to day in Star Wars. I like seeing the world be a little more lived in.
Yeah. Yeah. I love seeing the scene where Syril is given, the keys for the weekend or the
Mm-hmm.
week and immediately starts harassing people with desk jobs to pursue this investigation that he's been directed not to conduct.
Yes. Oh, the whole and this commanding officer clocks it immediately, right? He's like, "No, these two sucked. I know exactly what they were doing. This looks bad for us. Leave it alone." This snivelly little guy with his weird, corrupted, twisted sense of justice and need for power just immediately and his tailored security uniform. I love that they call out that he tailored his security uniform.
Mm-hmm.
But
Just some light tailoring.
yeah.
He's immediately like, oh, this is embarrassing.
Yeah. I describe Syril Karn as the proudest boy in the galaxy, right? And he gets a little bit of power and immediately starts thinking he is the roughest, toughest dude. But we see it in the opening scene too. The minute any real trouble happens to Syril throughout this series, the minute any real trouble happens to any of these dudes throughout this series, they immediately start like puppy dog eyes at you.
Cyril feels like when you look into his eyes, his inner child is just like, but I'm doing the most. What do you mean you're not thankful that I did all of this stuff? It's like he knows this is his directive, but he
Mhm.
somehow feels that if he decides to explore this and find the people who killed these guards anyway, that suddenly all will be forgiven, that he didn't follow his directive, and he'll suddenly be a hero.
Yeah, Cyril's the kid that doesn't catch on to the fact, like in the third or fourth grade, that like we're all following the rules because we have to.
Mm-hmm.
And there
Mm-hmm.
are certain rules that we don't, that we're just like, oh, just who cares? He
Mm-hmm.
does not get that. He does not
Right.
get that it's like, no, man, we all don't care about this. We actually just want to be left alone.
He's like, but these are the rules, and we all have to live by them, right? Otherwise, nothing makes sense. And
Yeah,
you're like, Cyril.
Cyril, come on, bud. If you raise your hand and ask why they didn't check the homework one more time, I'm gonna lose my shit. I'm not a bully, but I will bully you, Syril Karn. I will bully you harder than I've ever bullied anybody.
And my favorite line in that opening scene is when the boss man says, oh, I know this guy, Kravas. He's lucky he wasn't killed sooner. Just like classic. This guy is an asshole. Wow. Yeah, no wonder someone killed him. But Cyril's like, what do you mean? They've killed two of our own. And the juxtaposition is just so good.
When you look at sort of media and the pipelining, whatever pipeline it is for young men right now, uh, on the internet, in the media, in the real world, where there's a grift, but if you were young enough or dumb enough and were raised in it, you don't realize it's a grift. And so you believe it wholeheartedly. And the look in Cyril's eyes when this commanding officer was like, so what, who cares? Is the look in the eyes of like, I imagine so many like weirdos online who hear their favorite podcaster do like a complete hypocrisy 180,
Mm-hmm.
because the sponsor changed or the grift of the week changed, the headlines changed. And so now this person is just swapping with the times. And I see a lot of that in Syril Karn, right? Um, he is going to believe, and Dedra too. Dedra, they believe in this ideology to the point where it's detrimental to them, where everybody else can see like it's it's dangerous to believe in this wholeheartedly.
Right. And seeing these guys, like people like Cyril, responsible for maintaining a level of oppression and subduing resistance and discontent. That is something that we see in American media. Oh, these guys are heroes, law enforcement, people, they're just doing hard things that are necessary to do to like protect freedom. They're depicted as these very masculine, healthy people. And I think it's good to see Cyril doing what he's doing, which is enforcing the law, enforcing the power of the empire. But he looks so weak and so insecure and so fragile. And I think it's important we see that sometimes the people with the most power are not the strongest, are not the fittest, are not people we should aspire to be like.
Absolutely. There is a reason Kyle, I think, was cast and I think is so perfect in this is because he's 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 good looking in that baby faced way. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, oh, look at this like perfect, innocent, wants to do his best, wants to be the best he can be, uh, sort of guise and appearance. And then when you really look at him, it's total insecurity and trying to project power and stability through insecurity. And he does such an amazing job at that.
And I love the cut of Cyril, doing what he's doing, pursuing the investigation. This guy that's just like looking weak. He even gets startled by guards laughing, walking behind him.
Yes.
And I love that. And they're like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah." But he was like gaining the courage to go in the room and like pursue his little mission.
He and Dedra, when we meet Dedra, are both sort of like that, right? Where it's they grew up seeing the power, knowing that they wanted to be part of the power, uh, knowing that and being told that this is something to aspire to, and so they're nervous about it. They're always just a little nervous about trying to do this thing that they aspire to. Um, but I also think, based on what we've seen and based on what we will see of Syril, um, and the people who are around him, I think he knows that, like, on a level, like he's being a dork, and he just doesn't know any other way to be. And I think part of that fear comes from the fact that, like, he knows that he's going to get shot down again. He knows that everybody around him is like, you have to stop being this way. And he just can't. He's so indoctrinated into it.
Yeah, it's a compulsion he has that he can't fight. And cutting from the scene of Cyril to Bix, I love it so much because she's like soldering stuff, there's sparks in her face, or she's cutting something, and then she's like, "I'm busy, like, what do you need?" And Andor, Cassian's just like, we gotta call your friend. He has to come. He said he wanted to meet me, right? And she's like, "What happened to your face? Oh, was it a jealous wife or whatever?" So you just know that they have some kind of interesting history, but also that Cassian is dishonest. He's dishonest in his dealings and interpersonal relationships too.
Yes.
And it adds to his complexity as a character.
Yeah. I'm always very wary of shows and stories where quote unquote no one's the good guy, no one's likable, no one's because often that's an excuse that show teams use to just center terrible people in stories, right? Uh, but what you see in this show that I think is reflected so much in real life and is something that particularly at this time in history when we're trying to organize, we're trying to make more grassroots efforts, we're trying to work with one another. It's the it's this purity test thing, right? I hate using the term purity test. I feel like it's been co-opted, but one of the themes that you see in this show all the time is one rebel faction pointing at another rebel faction and being like, they're not the real rebels, we are. Right? They're not the ones who are actually doing the work, we are. And I think there's something nice in seeing Ferrix versus Primor, where in Ferrix, people are frustrated with Cassian, but they know fundamentally he's doing the right thing for Ferrix, for the people there, for himself, for his family, you know? So whereas I think like you can look at Syril and just be like, oh, he's a weasel, and you know, he's doing all these things that are like he thinks are good but are bad. Everybody on Ferrix is doing their best. And that's what I like about Ferrix. And everybody kind of understands that's, you know, the point of like, he just said I had to stand here and look tough. We know we're not going to rough up Cassian today. Hey, can I have the ship? No, you can't have the ship. But you know that I would let you have the ship. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
And you can see the history between Cassian and Bix too, which is really lovely. Just the history between the two of them, which is wonderful. You can tell Tim doesn't like Cassian, and not just because Cassian's a jerk, because Tim's the worst. If you got to be bad to be in the Star Wars galaxy and be named Tim.
Yeah. You don't get a cool name.
You don't get a cool name. Like at least Luke had Skywalker. You know what I mean? Like Tim is just Tim. Like you know that guy sucks.
Immediately. And oh, just yeah, she's in the back. So you know he knows Cassian. And then it's clear that Bix and Cassian have a history. And of course she begrudgingly helps him anyway. And I love that he says, you know, I have an NS9 Starpath unit, Imperial seal intact. You get the sense that this is a necessary device to travel under the radar. And then to go communicate with this guy, Bix has to go in this old radio tower.
Yeah.
I love the depiction of maybe modern technology is tracked and traceable. And so we use older ships, we use older styles of communication so that we are able to communicate freely and under the radar. And I love that scene where Syril's with the guy in the chair and they're looking at the ships coming and going. And they're like, what is that? And the guy's like, oh, it's just some old ship. Who cares? What would an old ship be doing? It's like not registering as a threat because it's old. And it reminds me of how you might want a gasoline car with no computer in it because your car has a computer that can be remotely controlled and turned off and on. It feels very visceral to me now, those scenes where they want to be able to move freely, communicate freely, and avoid surveillance.
Yeah, there's a lot of imagery and iconography that happens as we move through the series that sort of shows that. My actual favorite character in the entire series, Clea Markey, who we do not meet yet, kind of communicates with the rebel factions through like a 1940s style switchboard that we see later on, right? She looks like the bank of women in the department store at the beginning of the first episode of The Marvelous Miss Maisel, where she's just connecting calls to one another, right? Or you know, all of season 2 and the Gorman uses a lot of iconography of like World War II French resistance. We're communicating on radio bands that they don't use anymore. We're using equipment that they don't use anymore. Because as a sort of authoritarian government, something like the Empire uses their technology that they implement and makes sure that everybody uses their technology and their platforms because those are the ones that they can monitor. And they make it attractive because it's the highest tech thing, right? So if you're using the highest tech Empire stuff, you're the most connected, but you're also the most connected to the Empire. So I do love the sort of the mirrors that we're seeing and the allegories that we're seeing for, I have 80 things on my smartphone that are tracking me right now that I don't turn off because I've decided that's the trade that I make to have the convenience of my smartphone.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's this, I don't know, I feel when I see a burner phone, it feels romantic. It feels old. It
Ugh,
feels
a,
nice.
a
I want to
flip
flip it
phone?
open and flip it shut.
Are you kidding me? Seeing somebody with a flip phone right now? Listen to me. The most attractive thing you can have right now in the year 2026 is a flip phone.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hottest thing. I think if I see you on the street and you have a flip phone, I'll give you anything. I'll give you my wallet. What do you
Mm-hmm.
want?
Yeah. You're using a burner? You're doing something more important than me. I love it. Also, the cutbacks to the flashbacks in Kenari.
Yes.
We get those throughout this episode. It's pretty immediately obvious that the little girl shouting "Kassa" is his sister, and every time there's a "Kassa," it's heartbreaking. It imprints on your memory. It makes so much sense they named the
Yes.
episode Kassa, and it just helps you envision like, okay, this is what he's fighting for. This is kind of why he's a mess, because he's lost his sister who he loves. And you see that they're clearly not on Ferrix. It's
Hmm.
a jungle. They almost sound like they're speaking like Portuguese. It feels a little bit like
Yeah.
Brazil. At first I was like, that sounds like Italian. I was like, no, that's Portuguese.
It's
Um,
very South American coded, I think, because
mm,
particularly later in the series, you see that the Empire is literally strip mining it. It looks like they're fracking Cassian's home planet.
yes.
Um, so you definitely get that vibe, and when you go to Gorman, I definitely heard a lot of like French and Hebrew in there because that's like the World War II
Mhm.
resistance planet. So you know, I wouldn't be shocked if they based it heavily on Portuguese.
Yeah, it feels like they're in the Amazon or something.
Hmm.
And it's clear that they're getting ready for battle with the face paint and they've got their spears. And I love going back and forth. It wasn't like a let's cut back and explain everything that happened in Kenari. I
Yeah,
love that we get pieces of Cassian as a child in Kenari throughout this episode.
you get the emotional beats, and you understand something that you don't get about Cassian in Rogue One. You learn a lot about him immediately in this episode, and you really learn about his motivation is survivor's guilt under an authoritarian regime. He lucked
Hmm.
out, right? He had a sister, he had a sibling, family. They were on equal footing, equal status, and for whatever reason, he lucked out and he got Marva, right?
Hmm.
And he's got a like that's kind of the crux of his whole thing, and another reason why people are so forgiving of him is he's got that survivor's guilt, and to end up on Ferrix, which is a working class planet that hates the Empire just as much as he does,
Hmm.
and to wind up, we'll find, we learn more about Marva as we go on, but like Marva was no slouch either.
Hmm.
It's kind of like it's very illuminating, even though you only see just a little bit of his childhood. You get kind of everything you need to know
Yeah.
without it feeling like they're leaning on the tribal indigenous thing in a cheap and easy way, like a lot of media I think can. and
Hmm.
you would be forgiven to think that maybe Star Wars would paint it with almost too broad a stroke, but I think it really works here.
Yeah, this wasn't the problem we see in media of representation and image alone. We're going to use the aesthetics of an indigenous culture, an indigenous character. It depicted the actual struggle of indigenous people in protecting their land from imperial forces.
And you see,
And
even these kids and these families are dressed in what look like remnants of rebel flight suits, X-wing pilot suits, things like junk that people have left all over their planet, you know, and these are the things that they have to survive. And so it makes it does it in a way where you understand the real touchstone, but they're not borrowing things that I think can be cheap and upsetting.
and this thing that's so important to him, right? His home becomes the thing that helps him get identified in Ferrix.
Mm-hmm.
And Marva is clearly frustrated. She's like, "Why would you mention Kenari? Um, what are you doing, Cassian?" And then we see that the alert gets put out that they're looking for a Kenari male. And you get the sense from Tim that he gets a big bright idea as soon as he sees that come through.
Tim
And you just
sucks.
immediately start to hate him more because you're like, what are you going to do with this information?
Like,
Don't do it.
listen, I've often said that a lot of Star Wars would be solved if they invented therapy. Like if there was one therapist, like one family therapist maybe in the galaxy, it would be so helpful. It would be like maybe you wouldn't have to lightsaber fight your dad. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like maybe there could be a conversation. Um and I think like, hey, I wish there was a couples therapist on Ferrix. I don't think Premor has the best health plan. So
Hmm.
like, but man, if they could get into some couples counseling, like he's obviously right to feel a little bit of jealousy over Cassian and Bix. There's like in that earlier conversation they had, there's that moment. You see, you know that moment where they stop, they both freeze in the frame, and you're just like, oh, that's hot. It's they're not trying to be hot, but it's hot. And
They have so much chemistry with each other.
it's wild. And if I was Tim, I would hate that too. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But hey, Tim, you need a friend. We need to talk about the male loneliness epidemic on Ferrix.
Yes, and you can tell what's going on because Cassian's like, "Oh, that seems like that's developed to be more than work." So they started off as coworkers,
Yeah.
and you get the sense that Bix did this out of proximity and convenience.
And
That
probably
Tim is always
stability
there.
too, you
Hmm.
know? And you can tell Tim cares about her, but man, and it seems like honestly, it seems like everybody else is literally feels like a relative. Who's she gonna date?
Hmm.
Brasso? Come on.
Right. Yeah, you do get that sense. It does feel like a small town.
Yeah.
That relationship feels very small town. She's like, "Well, he would do anything
Do you
for
notice he's a
me, so
little?
we're
Did
together."
you notice he's a little cleaner than everybody else too? I want to know what Tim's job is. I want to know
He
what
works
Tim's
at the
doing.
desk.
He works at the desk, man. He
He's the
works.
front desk guy, and
Can't,
Bix is there covered in grease.
can't trust a front desk guy. That's something we're learning in Star Wars.
Yep, yep.
This
A
is
guy
why,
with
hey, to the person who asked the question, this is why you don't see desk jobs in Star Wars. Untrustworthy.
yeah,
If you could,
soft
if you
hands.
could fly a speeder bike, why would you be behind a desk? You got to ask what kind of psychology that is.
And then okay, they exchange where Cassian's like, "She's tougher than both of us,"
Mm-hmm.
referring to Bix. And Tim's like, "I'm tired of hearing that." Okay,
which
buddy.
which which is the right impulse delivered the wrong way, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of you putting all of this emotional weight on her,
Mm,
right? But what he's saying is I'm tired of hearing that because you're putting all this emotional weight on her, and I think you're also slighting my manhood.
yeah. Hmm.
Which, like, hey Tim, it's not about that, and it's not about you.
Whereas Cassian just he's being self-deprecating, tougher than both of us.
Yeah,
But Tim only hears, "You think my girlfriend's tougher than me?"
exactly, exactly. And she is. Bix Colleen is, I mean, other than maybe Clea Markey,
Hmm.
is the toughest character in this entire series.
Yeah.
I did get to interview, like, at some point I've interviewed the entire cast, and interviewing Adria was crazy because I was just the first 3 minutes was just me going, "Oh my God, your episode in season one. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my
Hmm.
God. How did you do that? Oh my God."
Hmm.
She's
Hmm.
amazing.
Yeah, she has those eyes where you look into them, you can tell how insanely intelligent and smart she is.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's so good because it's not just that she's strong and gruff, it's that she's deeply intelligent as well.
You can tell, like, she's the one that runs the radio tower, right? She's the one that does the
Mhm.
communication. Um, there's the other guy who, like, is the radio tech, who gets a bit more of a plot as time goes on. Rashi. There's
Mhm.
Rashi, who's she's like, I'm gonna go talk to him. Rashi's like, whoa, wait a minute. So you can tell she's part of this whole thing, but she's the brains and she's the central character.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, at least until we see what happens, at least until Cassian gets tied up and we sort of meet Luthen and all this stuff. Bix is sort of in charge of everything when we first
Mhm.
meet her, which I think is extremely cool.
Yeah.
She's just a very cool character.
Yeah, he has to go through her to sell this thing
Mm-hmm.
that's going to give him enough credits to get out of Dodge.
Which, by the way, she's like, I'm pretty sure I know where you got that, dude, and that's not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's actually my Pathfinder. So
Right, exactly. Exactly. And it's almost like she's making this calculation in her head of like, well, at least this will get rid of him for a while. Let's just do this. It's almost like everyone's saying this is the last favor I do for Cassian the whole episode.
yeah, and it's such a good setup for this thing, right? Because when we meet Cassian in Rogue One, um, he is in charge. He is a rebel officer. He is a spy, but he is in a position of authority, and we very much know where and who he is.
Hmm.
And you know, it's such a thing to do the prequel where you've got the young messy guy who turns out to be the cool hero that we know. But I really love the way this is done. And I mean, it's such a testament to Tony Gilroy's writing and world building, right? Where it's like you see all of Cassian's potential the same way everybody else does, but you know that we're meeting him, like, at that make or break moment in his life where this is either everything's going to turn out okay, or this is when I truly fuck everything up forever.
Yeah. I love how we start at that point. We don't build to that point. It's like, here's Cassian walking through the rain and he's in the thick of it. You can just tell by the way he's walking. It feels very, I don't know, with the pouring rain, almost Blade Runner-y, the way the lights are, and you're like,
Yes.
okay, where are we? What are we doing?
And costume design too. I mean, costumes are always great in Star Wars, but that jacket, like the jacket that he's wearing,
Hmm.
it's just this beaten up, ill fitting, like it's not even keeping him dry. Like you're just like, oh, this guy is in the middle of stuff.
And we don't get that a lot. So many movies and shows don't pay attention to the details. Everyone in Ferrix is covered in grease.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like they've been working all day. It looks like these are their work clothes. So many times you'll see movies and people's, military uniforms are perfectly pressed. And it's like,
Yes.
well, no, I don't think so. I don't think that's how it looked back then.
Yeah, I think they were afforded because it was known that this was going to be a limited series. And because of Tony's track record, um, they were afforded a lot of time and money and budget and talent to do a lot of stuff with filmmaking that we don't get to see a lot anymore in, like, these times of, like, incredibly quick turnaround for streaming, or this has got to be out in the theater, and then it's going to be in the theater for 30 days, and then it's got to be on streaming. And so just like push it out there. And things that you're talking about, like the Blade Runner style lighting, the details of the world building on Ferrix, like this isn't lit like a lot of streaming shows are lit. This doesn't have that flat theatrical, when I say theatrical, I mean literal stage play sort of lighting, where it's like we're flat lighting this whole thing so we can add special effects and shoot it from 3 angles at once. No, this was made like a film. We're setting up the camera, we're lighting for this shot, we're making sure it all looks perfect. And we know this world, we've built this world out to a level of detail that the costume designers do know that everybody should be covered in grease, right? We do know like what everybody should look like at every moment because we've had the time and we've taken the care. And I think that's something you see a lot through this show.
And that's something we got as a question specifically for you, Anthony. Speak towards the aesthetics and how you felt about it. Do you remember your initial thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember thinking that this looks like Star Wars, but it looks like a different part of Star Wars, which is not always what you want to see, but with specific projects, it is. And with something like this, it it really did feel like a total mix of a Gilroy movie and Star Wars. And I was like, wow, the harsh lighting, um, the dirt and grime, which is always part of Star Wars. Star Wars is about like making a lived-in looking galaxy, but the level of detail that they were afforded and the fact that it had a very classic filmic look, the fact that so much of it was done practically. And I'm not somebody who's anti CG or anti virtual production in any way. I think VFX does a lot, and VFX does a lot of heavy lifting in this episode that you don't even notice. A lot of the scrapyard where he's talking about taking the ship is not real, but it looks practical. The look of this and the feel of this and the tone of this is amazing. Everything about it is unique while still being, like you're saying, it has room for moments of Star Wars where it's like, I was just told to stand here and look tough. Like that's a Star Wars joke, but it fits in this the same way deeper talk about corrupt security officers makes sense in this. And that's the thing that I think I love about it most. And when I remember watching this and just being like, oh my gosh, this is going to change everything. People are going to be able to tell so many different kinds of stories in Star Wars now because of this.
Your earlier point about in previous Star Wars films, you have, Jedi and the Emperor, and you have Vader, and you have the top of the top, right? We're hearing from the Jedi Council.
Yeah.
And you almost get the sense of, okay, well, it would be so mundane and boring to learn about the regular everyday people in the Star Wars universe. But then this shows that actually it's more compelling to get to know ordinary people and their story and their struggle.
At the heart of the best Star Wars stuff, like you look at the original trilogy, and what you've got is a story about a family, and then you've got a love story, right? You've got a Han and Leia love story, and then you've got the story of Luke and his family and finding out who his family is. And yeah, it's set against space wizards and, giant worms and all this stuff. But the more you can focus on character and human emotion, I think the better off a story is. If you can figure out what that central like emotional theme is to your characters and what they want emotionally, that's going to resonate. So you can put a story in any setting at that point. And I think it's also just a breath of fresh air to get a story that doesn't feel like it has to be completely connected to the rest of the Star Wars we know. You know, these are still not, there are normal people in this story. It's still a story about a guy who's going to be a rebel and a spy, you know, and he still has a robot pal and all that stuff. But it's nice to be kind of away from the special chosen baby boy and his special group of pals that are untouchable going up against the dark wizard. You know what I mean? This is much more a human story of a rebellion.
And we see not just the human lower level folks on Ferrix, but like you said, we see them in the Empire,
Mhm.
the sort of desk workers, the people doing intelligence work, and Syril's got them working through the night on this
Yeah.
investigation. And they're like, are we gonna get overtime? Are we gonna get a break?
Yes. And you know, as we get into this later, you know, we see in the prequels, we see like, you know, the government, we see Padme and you know, she's like, so this is how democracy dies. And it's like, okay, that's the decisive moment. But like, who's everybody else in that room that's voting that way? And why are they voting that way?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's going on? And so even seeing things, because I think the prequels really wanted to tell a story of political intrigue and maybe didn't have enough time to dig down deep into that, right? And so that's why, you know, you have things like the Clone Wars series and all that stuff. But to be able to see it, you know, in this show and to be able to focus on Mon Mothma, you know, later on and other government officials and be like, you know, half the people in that room when Padme was like, so this is how democracy dies. Half the people in the room were like, this is crazy. Am I taking crazy pills? I can't believe I had to vote this way, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of cool to see like, why did there were three ETs in that room? Why were those ETs voting against democracy? ET
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't do that. I know ET.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. I love that this shows the story of the how someone put it was the grinding down that authoritarianism does to
Mm-hmm.
regular everyday people. And I also love that it's not just a story of top-down oppression. It's not just a story of like the boss is cracking down on his employees, so the employees are cracking down on the people, and then the people are miserable. It's the boss didn't direct Syril to pursue this investigation, and he did anyway out of compulsion. And it speaks to institutional power, but also how authoritarianism is almost a disease of the mind of the people who live within it. That this is bringing order and peace, and I'm doing the right thing by maintaining order and peace through extreme power because these people are making these decisions to get in fights and be evil because of human nature, and we have to combat that with like strong oppressive government. It shows that it's not just purely like doctrine passed down, it's something that lives in the people in an authoritarian society.
Yeah, if I just do it to them harder, maybe it'll work out. Cyril's like, the problem is this guy, my boss, is not doing this hard enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's almost like if I do such a good job, then I'll be able to tell the people above my boss that he wasn't being hard enough.
Yeah, yeah. The idea of like, well, let's just give it. And this is something that the first time I ever encountered this in my adult life was Bush's second term, right?
Mm-hmm.
This was maybe like the third time I had voted in my life, second time I had voted in my life. And I remember I lived in Florida at the time. I'm better now, but I lived in Florida and I remember talking to people my age, friends of mine who had the same political beliefs as me and who were like, well, he started it out and so I'm going to vote for the second term because I think we got to let him see it through. And I was like, wait, I heard that on TV. You're just parroting TV back to me. And so there's this idea that it's just like, well, I'm confused and I'm scared. And I don't know what to do because I know that I don't have the knowledge. But I have been told by people who are stronger, older, better, whatever it is you think, that if we pursue this exact ideology to the end, it will get better. And maybe the reason it hasn't gotten better is we just haven't kicked them enough yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
and you really see that. Like Syril's just like, I've been put in the worst position. This office doesn't work because they're not following the rules.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If we can just do the, if we can just kick them harder, everything will be fine like we were promised.
It's a very simplistic way of looking at the world.
Yeah.
Of course. And you feel the sort of juvenile nature in Cyril's demeanor, and you're like, well, clearly he climbed the ladder to get to this position by doing everything that he was told. But what happens when that person has autonomy? They only are good at doing what they're told. Now, he's getting creative, he's getting ideas, and he's going in and they're like, well, we're gonna have to filter the whole night. That guy probably has better things to do. But Cyril's like, I'm sure someone else wants the chair. It's just like, whoa, how did you become evil? But we see him like working
Yeah.
himself up to have the strength to go into rooms. So we know that this is not really how he is. He worked up the courage to be stern, but
It's
now he's abusing the power he has.
it's the so I do a lot of, I do a lot of work in pop culture stuff and video game stuff, and I always have. And one of the things that I really saw when I was coming up in the industry is the nerds who grow up to be bullies. The nerds who grow up to be bullies are always the worst bullies because it's just such a level of insecurity that's been with them for so long. And so it's like he's so fight or flight. You can see in Cyril's mind, like he is so fight or flight at all times that the second some guy like even sighs at a suggestion that he has, he immediately goes into fight or flight mode, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna have to do this all night. Oh, you don't want it? You don't want to do it? I will show you that I'm tougher than you. I'll show you that you can't sigh to me because I'm right. And it's just like the bullied becoming bullies.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem we have in our country right now, I think, Anthony.
Yes.
Is
I
bullying.
hey, I might have noticed that. I think I
Yeah,
noticed a little bit of that myself.
yeah, yeah, genuinely. Um, okay, the other thing I want to talk about is the music
Yes.
and the last scene where um Andor's sister, Cassian's sister, is standing there as he goes off, and he says something, and even though it's not in English, you get the sense that it's, don't worry, I'll be back, something
Mm-hmm.
to that effect. And then the music that hits when she's just standing there watching him run off, without anything being said about it, you get the feeling that this is the last time he's seen his sister. And I think the use of good facial acting and good music, it just tells the story so much in Andor.
Oh God.
And so it's not just a great series because I'm a political nerd and I love the message. It's a work of art, genuinely.
Yeah, that's the thing is you get a lot of you get a lot of works with political messages. You get a lot of big budget sci-fi stuff. You get a lot of all of these things. But there is a core of just filmmaking and storytelling that is really unbelievable. So the composer on this was Nicholas Britell, who also did Succession, which the Succession theme is an all-time banger as well.
Hmm.
And I think, every composer I talk to about taking on Star Wars is a little intimidated because of John Williams, right? How do you follow up John Williams? How do you do this? How do you make it your own? But you look at, Ludwig Göransson on The Mandalorian, and you look at Nicholas Britell on Andor, and they didn't slip. They didn't slip. They knew the assignment and they took it very seriously.
Hmm.
And it's a gorgeous, gorgeous scene because this is another thing that could be like we were talking about. Star Wars has always played on uh, tropes, mythology, things that we know, things that are familiar. The little kid walking away for the last time, we have also seen this scene a lot. but you're right in that, like, music, direction, finding the right kids, knowing how to direct kids, which is its own skill. Really, like, oh, there's a world, Jessica Burbank. There's a world where this show was the wacky adventures of Cassian and K2. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
There's a world, because people were sitting in a room and they were figuring out, well, we know we want to do the Rogue One show and we know we want to do Cassian. What's the show? And there's a version that was just wacky Cassian and K2 doing spy missions and quipping and doing one-liners to one another. And that would have been a fun show. I would have watched that show. But holy shit, that thing where it's like they didn't have to go that hard?
Yeah.
No one had to go this hard on this show.
That's true. And they did anyway.
They did
really
anyway.
did. Yeah, I think this is such a vague question, but what you just said is exactly what I projected onto it. The question is, it's hilarious. It's very diplomatic.
Yeah.
Many Star Wars fans have strong feelings about certain aspects of the franchise. Do you have any, good or bad?
Don't dance around it, buddy. What don't you like? What do you want to ask about? I'll answer.
Yeah.
Here's what I'll tell you. At Lucasfilm, there is a very real statement that people say and they believe. It's not just a corporate slogan. There are a lot of corporate slogans, but there's something that people say and they believe, particularly on the creative end, and that is Star Wars is for everyone. Star Wars is for everyone. What does that mean? That means that this is, number one of the biggest entertainment franchises in history. Everybody loves Star Wars. But number two, everybody loves different things about Star Wars. I like weird little guys. If there's a weird little puppet talking to a man on the screen, I am through the moon, right? If there's a weird little droid talking to a slimy little worm creature, I'm having the best time of my life. I love that stuff, right? Everybody has a part of Star Wars that is their absolute favorite part, and everybody comes into Star Wars at different times, right? So my older cousin watched all the movies in the theater in the 70s, right? And then when I was a kid, he had so much Star Wars stuff that he got me into Star Wars, right? And then I took my sister to see her first Star Wars movie, which was The Phantom Menace, midnight, the night it came out. And I did not, at the time, I did not like that Star Wars movie as much as other Star Wars movies, right? Phantom Menace, if you asked me to rank all 9, Phantom Menace hovers somewhere around the middle, right? But my sister loved it, And I think about, like, when I was a kid and my dad hated Ewoks. And then when my sister was a kid and I didn't like Jar Jar at the time, right? And it's like, or people watch the Clone Wars animated series and they go, ugh, what is this? And I go, well, it's a cartoon for children.
Yep.
You may not have enjoyed it as much because you're an adult watching a cartoon for children. It ages up as you go through it, but, and in the same way, there are stories that focus on aspects that I'm not as into. I've never been a huge Boba Fett guy, but a lot of my friends love Boba Fett, right? Not one of my favorite characters, but I'm not like, oh, bummer, they're making a Boba Fett show, or, oh, bummer, there's a part in this movie that's clearly for children, So yeah, like I have parts of the franchise that I like more than other parts. Now, to your actual question that you were asking, I fucking love The Last Jedi. To your actual question that you're asking, The Last Jedi absolutely rules. I'm sorry that people didn't like it. I think there are some things, there are obviously some things in it that I don't like either, but god damn do I love that movie. And I think it's the best of that trilogy. I think it's one of my favorite Star Wars movies of all time. And I think it's just dope. I think it's so dope.
I love that. I think I used to host this show called Rising, and my co-host was Robbie Suave.
Mhm.
Robbie's like a right-wing libertarian, whatever that means.
Yeah, cool.
It's
Great.
amorphous, you know?
Sure.
It fits whatever the situation is.
It's great for
Loves the
it's great for
prequels.
debates.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
It,
that's his thing. And he's obsessed with the prequels, right? He's
yeah.
like, oh, people who say the prequels are bad. I love the prequels. And I think the prequels gave people just enough of sometimes people are evil because they think they're doing the right thing.
Yes.
And good and bad is complicated. And I think The Last Jedi had this cathartic reaction from so many people because it was blurring good and evil in a way that they couldn't square.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't love I don't want to say woo-woo stuff, but like the Force stuff and the
Hmm.
Jedi stuff. I'm a spiritual person and didn't grow up with religion, obsessed with the Jedi
Oh
stuff.
my God. The Rey snapping her finger.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God. And you're just like, it's always been Rey. It always will be Rey. Like you've always been here. You always will be here. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're connected to this thing. I I love that stuff. And the fact that she and him were connected in a way that
Mm-hmm.
they didn't like, but you are the same people.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with the same stuff. Like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you think of each other. You are connected. We're all connected. Like
Yeah.
there was so much cool stuff in it. There was so
Mm-hmm.
much cool stuff in it. And it asked like two big questions. There were a couple of big questions that it asked that were really wonderful. Like who's making the X-Wings? Who's profiting? And everybody's like, why did they go to that planet that was full of these rich people? And what was the point? I was like, who are these people that don't care about this war right now? And why are they rich? Are we not asking that? We don't want to. Okay, we don't want to ask that. That's fine. And then the other thing was the other thing that people had problems with. I think was the Luke of it all. It's not what they wanted for Luke.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, to which I say, I don't know if you ever knew anybody that peaked in high school, but the rest of their life is not great. Can you imagine being the magical golden wizard boy that saves the world saves the galaxy at the age of 16? What do you do with the rest of your life? What do people expect from you?
Mm-hmm.
And then how do you square that with like if you really are connected to the force that governs the universe, how do you square it with how many people you blew up in a Death Star?
Right.
How do you do
Right.
that? And do you want people like high-fiving you all the time for like watching your dad die and like throwing a dude down a pit and like all this like do you want that? Or do you want to be maybe alone and like chill out for a bit? And not be war hero guy. You know, I think about PTSD of like actual veterans. You know, how many dudes came back from Vietnam and really wanted to chat it up with you about Vietnam? You know? And so to me, this whole thing of Luke felt really I understand. We all wanted to see magic wizard Luke who attained like Yoda like status, right? That's what we wanted for Luke. We wanted Luke to grow up to be Obi-Wan, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get to do that. And that sucks. But I think that's part of what makes the story interesting, you know?
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing of Rey handing him a lightsaber and him like throwing it over the mountain, like people hated that. And I was like, that was brilliant.
That's exactly what someone would do in that situation. And I think it's hard for people to have empathy for a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never thought about it that way, but Luke Skywalker is a former gifted kid. How do you
Yes.
bring justice to the galaxy as a teenager and then as an adult live a an equally epic life?
Yeah.
No.
You,
Literally everyone look up who you went to high school with. That was like the top of the top. Look up the most popular people from your high school. Then you'll understand why Luke Skywalker was depicted the way he was.
there's a reason that the only person that made it out of there level headed and successful was Leia. You know what I mean? When they show all the original trilogy characters, it's like Leia's doing all right because she got it from go.
Mm-hmm. Stable home structure, supportive
That's
parents.
right. That's right. Heard the call of the Force and said like, I'm really more of a grassroots organizer. I'm not really the figurehead. I'm really more of the grassroots organizer, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not into your weird religion stuff. I'm gonna do my thing. But you can tell she's force sensitive and she just kind of has a sense about things
Oh yeah.
and uses that to do normal life a little bit better.
Yeah. And to that, I think the third problematic thing that people have, the thing that people call out is the what they call the Leia Poppins scene, the anime Leia flying through the sky in the Last Jedi. And what I will say to that is,
Leia Poppins like Mary Poppins?
yeah, that's what they call it.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, and to what I will say to that is, stylistically, the way it's depicted on screen, I kind of agree. Um, I don't disagree with the idea of Leia being blown out into space and pulling herself back with the Force. I think that's something she would be able to do. I think the reason it looked so anime superhero like over the top, and something that you have to remember is Carrie had just died,
Mm-hmm.
and I think there was and I haven't asked anybody on the crew about this, but I think there was an instinct to show her as powerfully and heroically as they could, as sort of a tribute to Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they went a little over the top with it,
Yeah.
you know?
It was an emotional decision.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm watching Harrison Ford is in a new show called Shrinking.
So good.
Oh, so good.
Can you
So
believe
good.
that we're letting Harrison Ford act after like 30 years?
Yes, and he's playing an old man. And the scene where he's talking about how grateful he is to have so many people in his life and everyone's crying, a part of me was like, this feels too real. Like, I
Yeah.
hope Harrison Ford is okay because it was one of those moments where I was like, I'm crying. It was like brilliant actors, of course, but Jessica Williams was like
Yeah.
genuinely sobbing. And I was like, oh my God, this feels too real. I
I
can't.
I think it's like he's such a unique person because he's maybe one of the last big, huge, multi-generational movie stars, right? And so it's like we've all grown up with him. Like my mom grew up with him. I grew up with him. Like my little cousins and nieces and nephews grew up with him. So he's one of the people that can like stand in a room and give a speech like that. And we all feel it because we're like, no, Harrison, you're gonna be fine forever. We love you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're
Exactly.
so important to all of us.
Yes. I think we need a shrinking Star Wars crossover to finally get like maybe a Tony Soprano style therapy and Star Wars show.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Get Mark in there. Get Mark in there. I would
It's
love
just
to
like
see that. There's the scene
um
that they put out for the new season. That's him and Michael J. Fox. Um,
yes, yeah.
which is really beautiful. I just like those are two those are like two huge heroes to like everyone, you know? And
Mhm.
it was I felt that same level of emotion watch. It's not a Star Wars crossover, but it's definitely like a big 80s everybody knows this crossover where you're just like, "Oh
Mhm.
my God, I love both of these men. I don't know
Yeah.
these men. I love both of these men. I don't participate in parasocial relationships, but I'll do two at once right now."
Yeah, I think I mean, live in a society that values youth so much, and we expect
Hmm.
our actors to be young and our musicians to be ridiculously young.
Yeah.
And the idea that you can meaningfully act in old age and portray the struggle of losing control of your body that happens to everyone in varying degrees when they age. It
Yeah.
was just a moment that I was like, what a beautiful piece of media.
Yeah. Yeah. You even get a little bit of that in Force Awakens, right? Where
Mhm.
like Han Solo, things were not going to work out for Han Solo. He's just he was born to lose, that guy. And like when you see him in TFA, and you're just like, yeah, bad dad, bad husband, great. Kind of still running from things. Yeah, that checks out. But the hug between him and Kylo, you're just like, oh,
Yeah.
no.
You feel like a child of divorce. You're like, get back together.
You really do. You're just like, oh no, he's old and sad. Oh no.
Yeah.
He aged. He was allowed to age, and he was allowed to age imperfectly. Oh no.
Yeah, it's so good. Oh, I so appreciate you bringing your perspective on all of Star Wars to this.
Of course.
There's a decent split of people like watching for the first time, rewatching closely for like the third, fourth, fifth time.
Yeah.
And just the way that you explain it all and bring your context and life's work, it's very appreciated.
Oh,
and
thank you.
the best introduction to the Andor Rebellion project we probably could have had.
Oh, I
So
appreciate
thank you,
it.
Anthony Carboni.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jessica.
All right, Rebels, that is a wrap of episode 1. I will look forward to all of your chats in the Discord, and I'm so excited to get into episode 2 with you all. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Love you, bye.